Pleased to be talking with Steve Dawson, who is being inducted into the Wittenberg Hall of Honor. And Steve, thanks for taking some time with us. As you get inducted into this latest class of the Hall of Honor at a place like Wittenberg, what does that mean to you?
Well, hi, Scott. Good to be here during these difficult times. It means a lot because of pretty much a large part of my life, well, most of my life, I guess you could say, has been spent at Wittenberg. And also, I have quite a big investment, family investment. My wife went to Wittenberg. My eldest daughter went to Wittenberg. My son coached there for a number of years. And so my whole family has been involved with Wittenberg. And to receive this honor, I guess in this country, you call it first time ballot Hall of Fame or whatever it is. I just retired the year before. And so then to get the call to be inducted was obviously quite an honor, especially when you consider all the past athletes and present and coaches that have been inducted. It's a real honor.
32 years coaching the men's soccer program, a handful of trips to the NCAA tournament. I'm sure there are plenty of great stories that you could tell about your favorite moments, but just give us maybe a Cliff Notes version on some of the things you think about as you look back at 3+ decades running that program.
Well, yeah, it's tough to do that in a few minutes, but 32 years, I believe I'm the longest serving head coach. Joe might eventually eclipse that if he's around long enough. I obviously, you could look at the number of teams that went to the NCAAs with me, and obviously I look back on them on fond memories. Some of the teams that actually didn't go and may have only had a 500 season or less than 500, I may have actually done a better job coaching. Hard to measure. But I loved coaching all those years, all those teams. I would say the fondest memory, and it's a funny story, if I can say it quickly, was early on in my tenure, we were playing at Marietta in the OAC, in the old OAC, because my first few years at Wittenberg, we were in the OAC. And in those days, they split the conference into two groups geographically, and we were playing Marietta in the final. Whoever won that would win the OAC championship. And I believe it was 1984. And we went down there, it was homecoming, and they had a big crowd for soccer anyway. And we were losing, we were tied, and my goalkeeper got red carded. He gave away a penalty. And I walked on the field, and I thought it was a terrible decision. And the referee was actually English. And I told him what I thought about him, and I got red carded, sent off. And that's the first time in my career as a player or a coach I'd ever been red carded, and I deserved it when I look back on it. But anyway, I didn't have an assistant, and one of the captains' dad volunteered to be an assistant, but he wasn't a Wittenberg alum. He wasn't registered as a Wittenberg faculty or anything. And my wife, who rarely came to away games and was about 6 or 7 months pregnant with our first child, she taught at Wittenberg, and I said, can you take over? Otherwise, we have to forfeit the match. And she took over and coached the rest of the match. And I was standing in the parking lot shouting directions about who she should sub in. And there she is with a big stomach, And anyway, suffice to say, we lost 1-0. But the following year, exactly the same situation. If we win the OAC, and we went back and won 1-0 the following year. But I always remember that as a really funny story. And, a fond memory, and that was our first title as a soccer program. And that was the OEC, yeah.
You mentioned how for you, Wittenberg is not just work, but was family as well because of those other connections. Mm-hmm. And a lot of folks can relate to that with multiple generations that have attended the university and things like that. Is that one of the things that makes Wittenberg a special place, the fact that it is so close-knit?
Oh, I believe so, yeah. Wittenberg is one of those schools where you have a fantastic athletic tradition, and you have a great academic tradition as well. But you also have it's a place which, if I was looking at where my kids would want to go to school in Ohio, there's a lot of options, and Wittenberg would be one of those schools, because that I would encourage, and my oldest daughter went there. I would encourage to go because it's a close-knit community. It's friendly. It's elitist, but at the same time, it's blue collar. So it's got a bit of both. And I think it's you can get what I call a general all-round education there, because you can play sport and at the same time get a good academic degree. I think you can do both there. And of course, in the old days, a number of athletes, it's harder now, but a number of athletes play 2 or 3 sports.
Mm-hmm. And in your case, you coached multiple sports. You spent about 10 years, 1982 to 1991, coaching swimming and diving in addition to soccer, which maybe some folks would look at that and think it's unusual, but not really that unusual back then.
Yes. That wasn't unusual then. So my idea was, I wanted to be, when I got the job at Wittenberg, it was to teach. I was a full-time professor, as well as faculty member, as well as coach, and 2 sports. And when I came to Wittenberg, we had some great coaches here at that time. Davy Maurer, Larry Hunter, Pat Klaus, Betty Diddle Hunter just retired, and it was a different ball game then in those days, because all those teachers, they were full-time faculty, but they were also coaches. I mean, Davy Maurer was the AD when I first came here, and head football coach, and he taught academic classes. And Larry Hunter was a cross-country coach and head basketball, and he taught academic classes. So, yeah, it was not easy, especially as a young coach. I was in my 20s, and coming in to build a soccer program and a swimming program and teach. But the swimming program, I always thought, and I look back on this with fondness, that I never cut them short. Sometimes when you coach 2 sports, you feel like you know more about one than the other. And I wouldn't profess to being an expert in swimming, but I learned a lot. And, I took, over those 10 years, I took a number of swimmers to nationals, had some great kids, and I have a lot of admiration, a lot of respect for swimmers. I'd have to say, I can't think of a tougher sport physically and mentally in college than swimming. It's a tough sport. And we had some great kids, and I've stayed in touch with a number of them. And when I first started, we started in the old pool in the basement, of the old building, and for the first 3 months. And then the arena area, I say new, now it's old, 1982, that pool opened, and that was the second part of the first season. And it was, and of course, Kenyon and Denison in those days were dominant, but we had a fair share of success and took a number of swimmers to nationals. And it was, I have to admit that coaching those athletes it was interesting going from the soccer field. Like in October, I would go from the soccer field coaching straight to the pool. So I'd go from one to the other, back-to-back practices, as well as teaching in the daytime in our majors program. So, yeah, it was a busy time. Busy.
We know that people come from all over the country and all over the world to attend Wittenberg, but take us back to 1982. How does Steve Dawson end up in Springfield from London?
Well, I went to college in England 4 years, just outside of London, a big world-renowned physical education university called Loughborough. Actually, it's ranked right now as the #1 sports studies university in the world. It's an amazing place. They produce world-class athletes. Not that I was a world-class athlete, of course. But anyway, and then I taught 1 year in London, and then came to the States, was offered a grad assistantship at Kent State University, which had a really good graduate program. And I worked with 2 really top professors in sports sociology and psychology there, did my master's there. I taught at Hudson High School, coached at Hudson High School for a year while I was there. And then I met my wife. She was doing a master's at Kent State from New Jersey, but she was a Wittenberg grad, and she started at Kent State. a year after I did. I met her. We moved to New Jersey for our first year of marriage, and the job opened up at Wittenberg, and I applied for it. Came in, interviewed. Tom Martin was the chair at the time, and Davey Mao were the ADs, so I had to meet with them and all the faculty and everything, and the HFS faculty as well as the athletic faculty. And then they were all one, as I said before. And then started, and that's how I started at Wittenberg. And after 2 years into my tenure at Wittenberg, Tom mentioned to me, if you want to, move forward as a faculty member, it'd be a good idea to work on your PhD. So I applied to Ohio State and I started. And then we had children, and it was crazy time. But I eventually got my PhD, and while I was still coaching and teaching, but that was a proud moment for me as well.
Anyone that coaches or teaches knows that sometimes it feels like being a parent when you watch those young people grow up, right? When they become adults, or they get married, or they have families of their own. How much of that has brought you pleasure over the years, your former players that you still stay in touch with, that are like an extended part of your family?
That's a fantastic question. Yeah, I would say that one of the most pleasing aspects of my time at Wittenberg that I will take with me to the grave is the relationships that I've developed with all the people that I've worked with at Wittenberg, but especially those that, I've worked with many hours with. So obviously students that I've taught, advised, but especially the athletes. And I've stayed in touch with many of these, and it's really pleasing when I've been to so many weddings and see these guys grow up, have families, children of their own. And I mean, a number of them, actually, I've coached some of their children. And as the great Bobby Bowden, old football coach, said, it's time to get out when you start coaching their grandchildren. So it's, yeah, that's really pleasing. I stay in touch with a number of them. And I, for example, the last induction was one of my players from Sweden, Jonas Osterberg, and he came back with his son. It was fantastic induction ceremony. He gave a great speech, and now I see, especially with social media, like you've got Facebook and all that kind of stuff, you can see them. They post when they are having children, and it's amazing. It's crazy how quick it goes. But that is one of the most pleasing aspects of this job. If you call it a job, it's a vocation. Passion is to see those people that you work with develop and grow and become, and then also I saw a couple of posts yesterday of different guys who'd played for me who are now coaches, and how well they've done all over the country, who are in the coaching profession. And I like to think that at least maybe I pass something on to them.
Right. Well, Steve, you've done this job so well. As you said, first ballot Hall of Honor inductee. Thanks for taking some time with us, and congratulations.
Thanks, Scott. I really appreciate it. And also congratulations to all those others that are being inducted. I'm familiar, obviously, with Caroline Zimmerman, who was a faculty member when I first came here. And, Dan Russ, I remember watching him play, and his sister. And then, of course, Jerry Wozner. She was a incredible athlete. And I saw her a few years ago when we were playing out in Colorado Springs. So congratulations to all the others who have been inducted, and obviously the past recipients. Thank you.